Rich in resources, poor in reality, why these resource-rich countries still struggle, Part 2, Beyond Africa. They have gold, oil, diamonds, and minerals. Vast forests, powerful rivers, and land teeming with riches. But behind the glimmer lies a troubling reality: some of the world's most resource-rich countries are also among the poorest. Why is that? Today, we explore nations across Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and the Pacific Islands where natural wealth has not translated into human development. This is Rich in Resources, Poor in Reality, Part 2. Now into the details. 1. Myanmar, Burma. Myanmar boasts enormous natural wealth, including natural gas, jade, timber, and gems like rubies and sapphires. The jade industry alone is estimated to be worth over $30 billion annually. However, much of this wealth flows into the hands of powerful elites and military-backed businesses. Decades of military rule, ongoing civil wars with ethnic minorities, and lack of transparency have made resource exploitation a driver of conflict rather than development. Entire regions are mined while local populations live in poverty without access to proper education or healthcare. Myanmar's resource wealth has fueled inequality and violence, rather than national prosperity. 2. Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is incredibly rich in gold, copper, oil, gas, and tropical timber. Major multinational companies operate massive mines, such as the OK, Teddy and Porgera mines, contributing heavily to GDP. But the profits often fail to reach ordinary citizens. Local landowners frequently protest environmental damage, land grabs, and inadequate compensation. In many rural areas, people still lack basic services like clean drinking water and electricity. Tribal conflicts and poor governance further prevent resource wealth from translating into national well-being. 3. Mongolia. Mongolia sits on vast deposits of copper, coal, gold, and uranium, and its mining sector has seen explosive growth in recent decades. The Oyu Tolgoi mine, one of the largest copper-gold mines in the world, has attracted billions in foreign investment. Yet, Mongolia's economy remains fragile and overly dependent on China's demand for raw materials. Corruption scandals and government instability have undermined public trust, and fluctuations in commodity prices have repeatedly caused economic crises. A lack of industrial diversification keeps Mongolia locked in a cycle of boom and bust. 4. Laos. Landlocked Laos is rich in hydropower and minerals, especially copper and gold. The country has built dozens of dams on the Mekong River and its tributaries, exporting electricity to neighbors like Thailand and Vietnam. However, environmental destruction, forced displacements, and inadequate compensation to affected communities have led to rising discontent. Meanwhile, the mining sector is largely dominated by foreign companies. Despite economic growth on paper, most rural Laotians see little improvement in their daily lives. 5. East Timor, Timor-Leste. After gaining independence in 2002, East Timor discovered vast oil and gas reserves in the Timor Sea. A petroleum fund was established to manage revenues, and the country experienced brief prosperity. But poor governance, limited diversification, and overdependence on oil revenues have created deep economic vulnerabilities. Today, over 40% of the population lives below the poverty line. With oil fields depleting, the country is scrambling to develop tourism and agriculture before the fund runs dry. 6. Afghanistan. Afghanistan holds vast untapped reserves of rare earth minerals, copper, gold, and lithium, potentially worth over $1 trillion. These resources are crucial for modern technologies, especially renewable energy and electric vehicles. However, political instability, foreign occupation, Taliban resurgence, and lack of infrastructure have prevented proper development. Illegal mining and smuggling flourish, and profits are funneled to warlords or extremist groups. Afghanistan's natural wealth remains largely out of reach for its people, who continue to struggle with poverty and insecurity. If you find this video insightful, please click the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Next is Latin America. 7. Bolivia. Bolivia is home to massive reserves of natural gas, lithium, tin, and silver. It lies atop the Lithium Triangle, a region holding more than half of the world's lithium reserves, key for electric vehicles and batteries. Yet, Bolivia's efforts to nationalize and industrialize lithium production have faced technical delays and political battles. Social protests and indigenous land disputes frequently stall development. Despite its mineral wealth, Bolivia remains one of the poorest countries in South America, with high inequality and limited infrastructure in rural areas. 8. Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. For decades, oil wealth supported expansive social programs and elevated living standards. But extreme political mismanagement, corruption, and over-reliance on oil revenues triggered an economic collapse when oil prices fell. Hyperinflation, mass unemployment, and food shortages have driven millions to flee. The oil sector is now crippled by underinvestment and international sanctions. Venezuela serves as a sobering reminder that resource wealth, without transparency and stability, can lead to national ruin. 9. Ecuador. Ecuador depends heavily on oil and gold exports, with oil accounting for a major share of government revenue. However, extractive projects have caused massive deforestation and pollution, especially in the Amazon region. Indigenous communities have protested against drilling on ancestral lands. Meanwhile, the country faces high foreign debt and fiscal deficits. Corruption and political instability have also undermined progress, with resource profits failing to translate into consistent human development. 10. Guyana. Guyana recently made headlines after discovering vast offshore oil reserves that could transform it into one of the world's richest countries per capita. But the country's past reliance on gold and bauxite didn't lead to broad prosperity, and now all eyes are on how it will manage its new wealth. Concerns over transparency, environmental degradation, and unequal wealth distribution are already surfacing. The oil boom may uplift the economy, but only if the wealth is invested wisely in health, education, and infrastructure. 11. Surinam. Surinam is rich in gold, bauxite, and offshore oil. The country has attracted significant investment in its natural resources, but poor financial management and rising debt have hurt the economy. Illegal gold mining has caused extensive environmental damage, especially in rainforest areas. With limited economic diversification and underdeveloped institutions, Suriname remains vulnerable to external shocks and corruption. Poverty rates are still high despite resource-driven growth. Next is the Middle East. 12. Yemen. Yemen holds oil and gas reserves, particularly in the Marib and Hadramaut regions. These could have provided a foundation for development and modernization. However, decades of political instability and ongoing civil war have devastated the economy. Infrastructure lies in ruins, and humanitarian crises dominate headlines. Armed groups often fight over oil-rich regions, using profits to fund their operations. Even before the war, Yemen was one of the Arab world's poorest countries, and now its natural wealth remains a lost opportunity. Last is the Pacific Islands. 13. Solomon Islands. The Solomon Islands are endowed with timber, gold, and bauxite, yet the population continues to struggle with poverty and underdevelopment. Logging is the biggest industry, but it's largely dominated by foreign companies, and profits rarely benefit local communities. Deforestation has reached unsustainable levels, threatening biodiversity and livelihoods. Political instability and weak governance have allowed corruption and poor oversight to flourish. While resource extraction generates revenue, it's rarely reinvested into infrastructure, health, or education. Why does this happen across continents? The pattern repeats: abundant resources, but limited prosperity. Why? Here are the key reasons. 1. Corruption and rent-seeking elites. Profits are often captured by a small elite, rather than invested in health, education, or infrastructure. 2. Weak institutions. Without strong legal systems, contracts are abused and resource wealth mismanaged. 3. Over-reliance on resources. Other sectors like agriculture and manufacturing are neglected, making economies vulnerable to price shocks. 4. Dutch disease. Resource exports cause currency overvaluation, making other exports less competitive. 5. Conflict and instability. Control over valuable resources often leads to power struggles, civil wars, and prolonged instability. 6. Environmental damage. Resources are extracted without sustainability, leaving behind ruined ecosystems and unhealthy communities. Natural resources should be a blessing, but without good governance, they often become a curse. The countries we've explored today remind us that wealth beneath the ground doesn't guarantee wealth above it. What matters most is how that wealth is managed. What do you think? Can these nations turn things around? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into the hidden truths of our world.